All right, Coach. Good morning.
Morning, back in action.
We got a fantastic guest on today. Um, we'll talk about a bunch of things. Really building a program, taking a program that was already had a great history and elevating it to another level. We have Coach Lange on from Red Bank Catholic, state champs. The last 3 years, I believe, right? They've been to the state championship.
Yeah, they've been there consistently, man.
Won two of the last three, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And really building that program and he keeps pushing the envelope, taking it to the next level. Former Marshall Thundering Herd, I think, as well. That's
West Virginia.
Sure. Alumni of there. And before we bring him on, real quick, did you see the USF thing? That was crazy to me. That was wild.
With baby Gronka, giving him a scholarship.
Come on, man.
I mean, listen, Lane Kiffin did it. How many years ago at USC? Remember, he had that. It was Stills, right? Stills, that quarterback that was at Eastern Christian. I mean, shit. When I was at Bosco, we scrimmaged them, and he was there, and he had that offer in seventh grade, right?
But David Sills was a stud, right away.
I mean, baby
Gronk is 11 years old. I have at Middletown 11U. We got five guys that are better than him. So anyway, enough about that. Let's bring on the man of the hour. Let's bring on Coach Lange and talk some football. Coach, great to see you.
Great to see you guys. Appreciate the time.
Hey, Coach, thanks for coming on, man. I know you got a busy schedule, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk some ball.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
Awesome.
Now we're excited to have you on. You know, you had a great season this past year, obviously, but you're a fantastic coach. You're already moving on to your new team and trying to wrapping up, I guess, maybe some recruiting for some of your guys, and then moving on to the next season. I think the first thing is, you came into RBC, and it's a storied program to begin with, right? Yeah. And they had a lot of success over the years, but the thing that I noticed, I mean, right from the get-go, you really were working to elevate it to a different level. When going back to when you first came in there, what was kind of your thought process in taking over the program?
Well, I mean, I think the first part is don't screw it up, right?
Hey, some guys will overthink it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously I was very fortunate to get the job, and it's obviously, like you said, a storied program, great support, great community, and just great kids. And I think the first part of it is keeping the nucleus intact, and what I mean by that is keeping your staff in place. And I think we did a pretty good job of, if you really look at over the years, we don't really have a lot of turnover as far as that. Everything is based on relationships, and I think we're a pretty tight-knit group overall as a staff, and I think our kids relate to that. And that's always been a thing of mine. Like, we're very close. We all talk all the time. We're constantly texting through the season, off season, all that stuff. And I think that's the first part about it, is just kind of building an infrastructure where the staff's in place that, you have to have that family-like atmosphere, that brotherhood, and it starts with that. And that was like the first part of it. And I think that was pretty easy because, like I said, there really wasn't many changes. They kind of was turnkey as far as that, and that kind of sold the kids on, hey, this is hey, full steam ahead. This is normal, right? So,
yeah, I think that that's interesting. The fact that you were able to kind of rely on some guys that already had been around the program for years. I noticed that about RBC. Like, there's
not much turnover.
Yeah, there's a history and a kind of a precise in bringing in bringing in the right guys to be able to keep moving the program forward. Obviously, the athletic director they had for many years, had a lot of stability to it, but it's just a story program. Like, you go anywhere. I played with RBC guys when I was at UConn. I mean, you go anywhere, there's people that, especially in the Northeast, there are guys that have played with RBC guys, and then that legacy. So moving down here from North Jersey, that was one of the things. We have all those programs up there, right? And having coached up there in public school for many years, RBC is really the parochial school down here, the private school, and it's everybody up there knew of RBC, so it's
Right.
really, really interesting. But what's really, I mean, captivating me is how you're not satisfied with what you guys have been able to do. Obviously, you've had tremendous success and state championships. I think I was correct, right? In the state championship last 3 years, you won 2 of the last 3, right?
Yeah, last 3. We were also, since I've been here, I mean, we were 18 where I was at the DC. We were that was the year we played Modern Day.
Yep.
And prior to I being here, 14 was the first one when Jimmy Portello was the coach.
Okay, got it. What I like is that you're escalating it, like Target and going to play in Bergen Catholic. I went and watched that game, and trying to get everybody down here to really understand that there's levels to it, and there's where we are, what we've been, where we are, where we're going, and where our goal is to be one day as a program. Talk a little bit, kind of your vision as to, because I see you playing better and better opponents every year, not just playing the short conference. Obviously, you have your short conference schedule.
Traveling out of state now for the first time, right? Like going to play Powerhouse in Delaware.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just continued. You've continued to push the envelope. So speak on that a little bit, Coach.
Well, I mean, I think it's just more about, to your point, like raising the bar year after year, and I mean, I look at it as the Bergen game last year. Hey, we obviously didn't come out on top, but it's also like a mindset that you get from being in a game like that. Like our kids and our collective, look, don't get me wrong, they're phenomenal and they beat us, and but we left that game feeling like we left a lot on the table that night, and again, by the end of the year, our kids kind of felt like, wow, if we had another shot, like
right,
it's a mindset. Now, look, I don't know how that would have shaked out, but it just, when you get to that point of success, if you will, and I think it's just that's in your DNA now, right? You always like big game hunting and looking at the atmosphere of that. It's kind of where we want. It's kind of where we want to live now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And you see, like, and again, it's like, I know we graduate a lot of kids. I was just having some conversations with our kids yesterday. It's like, I know we graduate a bunch. We have a bunch of young talent, but we're not looking to take a step back in any aspect, and the expectations stay the same. Which, hey, that's kind of comes with the territory, right? Like, nobody's gonna feel bad for you. We have to have a good off season. We have to work hard. We have to do all the right things on and off the field. And then you get to this year where, to your point, like, all right, now we're opening with Middletown, Delaware, which is, I think, they're 8-time state champ in Delaware.
Phenomenal. Really, Coach Blum's an amazing dude. Great dude.
Really nice guy. We're our home opener is Depascale. We're playing Paramus Catholic.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of where we want to live. And again, I'd rather test ourselves every week in and week out, and be if I have to take a couple L's along the way to get to a point of developing us for another playoff run, I'll do it. But I think it's just our mindset, and again, like I was saying it the other day, like, when you get to certain levels, like a Bergen or even us or Tom's River North, where Donovan, where you get in games and your kids don't ever think you're going to lose. And that's hard to get to. And that's not just us. That's a lot of teams. Like I look at the Tom's River North game last year where they're phenomenal. And it's just back and forth, like a 12-round heavyweight fight, just, literally to the last play. And we just never want to take a step back there. And that's one of my goals this offseason is that we're looking to go forward, not back.
And I think that's really important, because especially being down here where, it's not like up north where you have those multiple amount of, private schools that they're playing each other, like, and I coached up there at Bosco. So I've been in that league, and every week it's like you're in the SEC, right? Every week is a big game. Every week you're playing against a phenomenal opponent. Down here, with your short conference schedule, you have to go out and kind of find those games to put your kids in the position that now we get to the playoffs. Like, oh, this is easy because who we've played and the mentality that's been instilled every game, you know, with those games that you've now gone and scheduled.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I am loyal to the short conference. I value, like,
Oh, of
you know,
course.
there's something to be said when you play RBC Rumson or Donovan, or, you know, we've had some great games with South over the year. Like, it's a you know, I just look at it, it's a great collection of games every year that we get.
Right.
So, and there's such value in it. You know, I'm not a huge fan of like going all over the place, but, you know, because something to be said where you play in your own backyard or your rival, and you have, you know, the local exposure and local following to where you have a couple thousand people at a game. So it's that blend that really works for us.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. When pushing your players, so winning state championships, you're going undefeated in the Shore Conference. Your only losses to Bergen Catholic. How do you handle each year? So these kids are having a lot of success, right? Freshmen are coming up. How do you get them to understand each year that this is a new year? We've got to push again. We've got to continue to raise it a little bit more each year. What are some of the things that you might do with your players to really continue to help them understand that last year's team won this, right? Now it's your team, and now we've got to continue to raise the bar a little bit more. How do you get them to stay from being complacent after having a lot of success?
Well, I think it's just getting back to what your core values are, and it starts with our off-season program where, you know, we'll do a couple days in the morning before school. You know, we've had some really good numbers as far as our 6:30 lifts. We've had over 40 kids on those, and you know, our kids are great. Like, they'll do a lot of their own off season. You know, they'll do their, I don't know, what do you even call it, like captain stuff on their own by themselves. So we get a lot of that. But I think the biggest thing, and I've said this, I say this in the nicest way possible to the kids collectively through the off season into next year, is when we realize our mental state is we haven't won anything with this group.
Right.
And we've turned the page. Like, look, some guys I get it. Some guys will, hey, we're still thinking about last year, the championship game, all that stuff. When we get to the point where we kind of, you know, flush that out and get to the point of, okay, who's game one next year? And that's, you know, this group, again, I say in the nicest way possible, we haven't done anything yet. And that's when we get in that mental aspect of like, okay, well, now we're worried about Middletown, Delaware on the 28th of August. Then I know we're good. But for right now, it's, you know, for what it is, like, our off season's off to a good start. And I think we have a group of kids that, you know, we have that blend of, you know, our seniors this year are hungry. And I think we have a lot of good young talent that's going to blend in. But again, we haven't won anything yet. So let's just kind of move it day to day.
Every season's different, right? Like,
That's
you
it.
know, and like you said, like, you can have, hey, we did this last year, but you know what, dude? Like, you might have, you know, played this, but now you have a new role, you know? So that transition from last season to this season, I mean, look, every year we see, right, guys that are juniors that are becoming seniors, and all of a sudden these guys are unbelievable. And it's like, where have you been for the last 2 years, man?
Right.
Like, you have that development, but that starts with your off season, right? And if those guys aren't bought in and kind of buying into the whole thing for the whole time, it's not really going to work. So in order to do that, like you said, you have to create that atmosphere and that culture that, you know, like you said, captain's practices, those guys do those things on their own, right? Like, that's not something that you're pushing them to do. They're doing it on their own because that's what they care about.
Yeah, no, it's just, you know, our thing is, you know, hey, you know, you guys have coached a long time. It's every kid's got their own story, right? Some kids, you know, have it easier than others. Some kids come from different backgrounds, family lives, all that stuff. And I always say, like, to, you know, the kids, like, how's your story going to end, right?
Mhm.
Are you going to, and this has always been, you know, football is a safe haven for a lot of us. You know, it's an escape, right? So, you know, that's part of it too, you know, on an individual basis, because, you know, if a kid's buying in the right way, it's only going to make your team better. So, you know, there's a lot of more mental and psychological things that go on. But, you know, for right now, we're mid-January here, happy where it started and see where it finishes.
Absolutely. Well, we already got in the comments people that are saying they can't wait to come to RBC, 11-year-olds. So, so you're doing something right there, Coach. You're doing something right.
Maybe my 11-year-old daughter will be there too. So.
Recruiting, and I want to get this. This always ends up taking a large part of what we talk about because it's so wild today. And I remember a couple of years ago we spoke when you had the tight end, and he was going to a place, and all of a sudden the rug got pulled out, and he ended up somewhere else. It worked out really well for him. But there's now you got the transfer portal going on, and changing high school recruiting in a whole different way, right? So it's not just coaches changing over and doing things from scholarship standpoint, but now you have guys actively seeking players that are currently in college.
How on rosters?
Yeah, on rosters. You heard my comment about the Brady. I don't know if you saw it, but South Florida literally doing a video and officially, so everybody can see it, offering this 11-year-old kid, baby Gronk, who's like an internet sensation. Like, I find some of this stuff to be obviously sensationalism, with the internet and social media. Obviously, we're able to do podcasts over it, which obviously is one of the nice things about it. There's pros and cons, everything. But what have you found that's really changed from the time you maybe you started coaching to even the last 2 years in recruiting? What are you seeing now?
I think that, and again, I'm going to word it the nicest way I could say it, and again, it's not a knock on any kid who gets an early offer or gets an offer later on. But the best recruiting advice I could give to anybody, especially when it gets to these high level kids, is, and it'll make sense when I say it, an offer really isn't an offer until you get an official visit.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's just. I mean, again, I don't want to. It's interest, but it's not legit until they say you're coming on an official visit. And I've learned that the hard way over the last couple of years. And I've had some tough conversations with colleges, but that's the truth as far as for a high school kid. And I feel for him because we've had guys, and I'm sure there's coaches across the country on a high school level that, unfortunately their kid was maybe at the finish line with a school and got the rug pulled out from under them because a transfer portal guy came in and says, and I understand it from the college perspective because what am I going to roll the dice on my job with? 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid that I got to teach, maybe even a stance to, or a grizzled 22-year-old, 23-year-old veteran guy that's played 3 seasons at a in a Power 5 school. It's just, it's the world we live in. I mean, we try to really help both. I mean, I help the kids at our place from freshman to senior year try to get, and all, we have kids that are Power 5 kids down to kids that get great Division III offers and things like that. But, the other side of it is a lot of kids come home and say, hey, coach, I need help with my transfer options. And I try to do my best with that. But it's challenging on all aspects. And I don't know, I don't know where it goes. I mean, I'm hoping that between, the NCAA and even the NJSIA kind of can help the kids in this process because it's rough. It's rough.
Yeah, it's not just challenging but it's obviously also probably challenging for parents to understand, right? So part of what really is, I think, must be difficult for you, when they get an offer, explaining what you just explained, right? What does it exactly mean? And then there are kids that some get offers early. You might have really good players that you may be thinking was going to be better, maybe than not better, meaning at high school level, but in the long run at another level. And he hasn't gotten something yet. Like, that has to be very, very, very difficult today to manage. And obviously, because of transfer portal, some of the kids who might have been Power 5 school kids, maybe they're Group of 5, or a Group of 5 kid maybe is FCS, and FCS maybe is, I don't know, 2, right? So how do you manage that? Because obviously, kids that are come to RBC, they have a certain level of
for a reason.
They have certain level of hopes and dreams, right? I mean, not every kid, but obviously they're playing there. They want to play at a higher level. How do you kind of manage that with the parents? What are some of the things that you do for them?
Generally, I forget when it is. I want to say it's May. It's right before the summer. I do like I did it last year. Well, I always have like a parent meeting in the summer, but last 2 years, I've actually invited every parent in the program from seniors to freshmen on a Zoom call, and I do a PowerPoint presentation on college recruiting. And it's like from, all right, this is what this means, and this is what it means if you get invited to spring practice, and how important like the academics / athletic blended scholarship is so common now, and all these things where I think our parents have a healthy expectation of what it is. Now, when it gets down to an individual and, hey, I thought I was going to, believe me, there has been many a times, and some of my parents will tell you, like, I get off with a college coach and I say, wow, I don't know anything about college recruiting.
Right. Because you kind of throw your hands up, right? Because you think it's going one way and you kind of like whatever. And then these guys, it's like, what are you talking about? And it goes both ways, Yeah.
But the end of the day is, and I'm sure you both agree, and I'm sure you both told kids this, is you got to go where you're loved the most.
That's it.
And I'll give the example, like Coach, you were talking about our tight end 2 years ago, is, he, at the end of his whole recruiting story, he goes to Tulane, who was all over him. Willie Fritz was up here, watched him play basketball, and Alex goes there and catches the winning touchdown pass against the USC with Williams at quarterback for USC.
Yeah.
So, it works out. I mean, and again, it's just, that's kind of like been the rule. I don't like kids stretching for things now. It's just not go with the safe play and, reevaluate it after, a year or two. But it's challenging, no doubt about it.
Right. And that's something that's even changed too, right? Like your approach to say, hey, go here, right? But if it doesn't work, now you can do something else. Like it used to be, hey, this is 4 years, this you commit, this is your decision. Like this is all about. Now they kind of have this comfort, right? Of, okay, well, if it doesn't work, I can always go and make a move. And I think that changes a lot of the recruiting. But what you said about, sitting down with the parents, having that PowerPoint presentation, one, it shows the parents that you care a lot about the whole process, which they're all in for, because little Johnny and little Timmy, we got to get to that next level, and everybody thinks they can all play at that level. And just for how much this has changed and continues to change, I mean, this is different from last year, right? So even if you had a son who graduated 2 years ago and you went through this process and he's playing somewhere, it's totally changed now for your younger child. So that communication about just letting parents know and understanding what the process is just puts them at ease.
Yeah, and I think that the ultimate, to your point, puts them at ease and trusts us to help them through the process. Like think of where we are in New Jersey now. We have, it's not spring football, but it's the best thing, next thing, where you have
closest thing we can get to it. Right?
You have, I was just looking at the date, but it's like April till Memorial Day, where you have that window where you can go on the field. And look, it's nice to have the practice part of it, but we've had, obviously we've had some good kids the last couple, especially last year. We probably average on those. We look at them as like, it's great, like pro days, right? Like
that's exactly what it is, right? Those guys.
We probably were averaging and like 10 to 20 coaches a week that would come to watch them, and I think it's just good for your program. And obviously a lot of them in the Big North do it. I know some guys down here do it, and we create time with our kids, but ultimately it gives them the exposure they need, and they get to bump into a lot of coaches, and we do it at all levels. So we'll have 35 kids there to run around in front of a college coach. It's all good on all sides,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
How is your time allocated these days? Right?
Come on, man.
I had to give him a $50 million question, because obviously, you have a job too, right?
Yeah.
And you're running this program, which is obviously a full-time gig, obviously recruiting. Like, how do you allocate your time across everything from a football standpoint? How do you do that?
Well, I just think it's now, nowadays, there's so many different ways to market your program, to connect with a coach, to connect with your kids, to just so many different ways, between social media and even texting and cell phones and all this stuff. It's my days are pretty fluid as far as normalcy. I mean, but at the end of the day, I make it a habit of not missing anything my kids' stuff, and that's the other side with coaching here is like our guys are. I feel like our staff doesn't miss anything with their guys because their kids and their families as much as you can, but I think it's just being like even like we just talked about, like I don't. Where a day where I would do my parents' meeting 10 years ago, I'd have to do that in the auditorium and do like some kind of slide presentation where, I literally did it from my home office and did it on a time that worked for me, So, I think it's every day is different, but I obviously I have a great staff that helps too with between the off season stuff, but yeah, like I said, the day to day is very fluid, between recruiting calls and our program itself and things like that. But at the end of the day, like it's worth it. I mean, it's a great environment, it's a great situation that we're in, and it's a great culture.
Taylor Black, do you remember him playing for you?
Bishop Bar.
He said he played for you at Bishop Bar. He said you run a
one of the best spread offenses.
Yeah, best spread offenses. So I want to talk a little bit about your op. He said one of the best. What did he say? Best spread offenses he's ever part of.
Played for Coach Lange at Bishop Bar back in the day. Ran one of the best spread offenses I was ever a part of. Proud of you, Coach, and wishing you all the best.
Yeah, he was great. He was a great player. He was a tough kid, tough wrestler. He was a scrappy guy. I remember him well. He's a good player.
How do you?
That's great. I love that.
That's great. I love that.
That's the whole part.
Our favorite part was
worth it.
When so many times in, like that's great. Offensive wise, because I've seen you've really evolved RBC's offense from where it was, and you have an open system, but you're running a lot of different type of stuff. How do you go? Well, obviously part of it is, listen, you had Manuel Ross, great player. You have Frankie Williams, who could do a lot of things, right? But how do you continue to evolve your offense and kind of what are some of the core tenets of what you're trying to accomplish there?
Well, I'll say this backing up. So I'll give you so originally, before I was an offensive coordinator, I actually was a defensive coordinator at Bishop Bar. And then I actually ended up switching over to the offense. And this was back in the, how old am I? The Rich Rod days of like,
don't do it.
So.
Noel Devine days.
And even before that, the Slayton, Pat White days.
Pat White.
So
Pat White, he was a freak of nature.
I do remember I bought their playbook on eBay. A true story. It was a download. It was like, I don't know. It was ridiculous. It was like 300 pages of, at the end of it, it's like, all right, just give me the diagrams and I'll just figure it out. Right. So yeah, we had, I was switched from that and, we were just, that was back in the day of just, hey, the fad was zone read, right? So you just like, hey, quarterback reads the end, takes off the end squeeze. And we started that way and, cultivated it off of that and predicated off of the quarterback really. And then when I came over to RBC, I was on the defensive side, which is more my world, to be honest with you. And then when I got the job, obviously I was fortunate enough to have some really good guys around me, and I wanted to go spread again. The big difference that, going back to what I just said, is everything. I like everything predicated off the quarterback's decisions. So like, I know like people, in the RPO world, people ask us like, well, why don't you run more? Or why don't you pass more? And it's like,
reading it.
We have a run pass called pretty much every play. And, our offensive staff has done a great job over the years as far as just putting us in situations where, yeah, it's complicated, I guess, but it's not we'll dumb it down to what we need it to be to make it successful. And, and that's really it. I mean, on the surface, it looks like, hey, it's fast paced, kids moving all over the place, but
it's exciting.
it's really not like, I don't know. It's I don't want to say it's simple, but it's simplified to a point where a high school kid can understand it. But we've been fortunate over the years here to have quarterbacks that are very good between between the Lubishers and the Borriellos and Alex Brown, and obviously Frankie Williams has done a phenomenal job the last couple of years as far as what we ask a lot of the quarterback. And our quarterback coach, and always our offensive coordinator Mike Rosenfeld does a great job with that as far as just creating an atmosphere where they it's a teaching aspect of just learning it. We do a lot of board work. We're not a grinder on the field where I feel like the days of staying out on the field, 3 hours are over.
Yep.
We work super fast. Our practices, we preach playing fast. So why would we do anything else other than practice fast? So if we stay over 2 hours, it means we had a crappy practice, to be honest with you. So we're very organized, scripts and, attention to detail as far as that. And I think that's why you see that, my thing is always about, now it's new for me as a head coach. I don't call either side of the ball. I'm involved in every aspect because I got guys I trust, but at the end of it, it's my thing is it clean, right? It's everything look clean, I feel like in all three phases, we do a nice job.
Yeah. I think that's, that's a big part of it. Moving to the CEO role. I think especially at a pro, like obviously you could call any side of the ball. You have the experience to be able to do that.
Right.
Knowledge to be able to do that. But to be able to empower your guys, I think, when you get to that point in a program, you have the capability to really go to incredible levels. Not that you don't make changes when are necessary, right? If somebody's not holding their end of the bargain, but you're able to really escalate it because they're empowered to really kind of go to the next level themselves. And I've noticed that coaches really start to run with that, right? So that's a big thing, but it's hard. It's definitely hard, right? Because the nuance in high school, you could still do it. You could still you see college guys still call plays.
I think
that
it's
are
incredibly
head
tough,
coaches.
right?
So it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to is when you have a staff you trust, right? And
that's huge.
Obviously offensively, I was just talking about my defensive coordinator Kevin Gall does a phenomenal job, and he worked under me when I was the DC, and ultimately it's I think sometimes you gotta it's the days of, I don't want to, I guess the word is like the days of like being a dictator, I feel are not the way things work in the world today. And, more like the collaborative part. Don't get me wrong. My guys usually know when I want something called. I don't really have to, they get an idea when I say it a few times, but overall they just look, they're well prepared and organized. And, when you have that, you have a successful product out on the field.
Well, it also gives you the ability to, when you're not calling every single play,
you can look at other
actually
things.
sit back and look and see where as a play caller, I just know, obviously, from experience too, like you're in the tactics of calling each play, setting things up, and you as a head coach are able to kind of take a step back, and you might see something that he's missing, right, as he's going through his sequence, as he's going through his sequence.
Well, the other side is too, is think about it, is like if you to be a successful offensive play caller, you need to understand defense, right? And vice versa. So you're going to know what, if you're playing a 4-3 defense that plays cover 2, you're going to know how to attack it, right? And just to give you an idea, like, so I think, you have to understand all three phases, so, and it just kind of goes hand in hand. But like I said, it's just for what we have as far as, our staff, they just did, preparation is, we're never going to be not prepared. So that's my big thing. So,
and I think that's part of the stability within the, the stability within the program, for you to trust those guys to be like, hey, you make the call, right? Like, hey, and now you can just kind of, like you said, like Coach said, you can kind of monitor everything and give them like a, hey, let's speed it up this series, or hey, like you got 4 downs here, or what I mean, or hey, I'm looking to do this here. You can kind of monitor that. I just feel like, look, even high school, for a head coach to, the old school days of, hey, I'm calling the offense, I'm calling the defense, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, at some point, you got to trust your hires, you got to trust your staff, and give them a little bit of something and kind of delegate. And that just works for everybody. And then the kids see that, right? Like, oh, it's not all about coach. Like, this guy knows what he's talking about too, right? So I just think that's just such a better way of doing it. And the kids see it.
Yeah, no, it's just when in big spots this year, you would see it. Like, I'll give you an example at the end of the Toms River game where we had like a minute 20 left. Like, there wasn't panic on any side of what we're doing, because between myself and the offensive staff, you're just sitting there going, okay, let's get to the 50 by 50 seconds. Okay, let's get down to the 30. But look, it didn't pan out that way. We had to scramble to score at the end. But as far as just being composed and things like that, like, it goes a long way when you're all on the same page.
And one day I hope for you that, like, one of your alumni players, who do really well in the pros, come back and says, "Here's the land I bought for you."
Yeah.
And they build you your own stadium. That's what I root for you one day to have happen. They come back and they say, "All right, here in Red Bank, I bought this land for you, and we're putting this all together."
Not in Jersey, bro.
Wow, you don't like the boat behind the stadium at Count Basie?
I just love the parking. It's my favorite thing ever. Like, going there.
Well, that has a mystique to it. Game wise, it has a mystique there.
I think it's.
I mean, look, when the press box isn't on the 50, like, I get it. I think I'm crooked, right? But it's all good. It adds, like you said, it adds a little bit of something extra to that, right? Like, even this, like, you had guys come down to Count Basie, right? Like, you didn't travel; they came to you, and that was kind of a different. Oh, okay, this is different. It creates an atmosphere.
Yeah, I don't think Bergen Catholic saw a visitor's locker room like that ever. So,
well, I mean, listen, no offense to them, but you know what I mean. Like, you catch a touchdown in one of their end zones, and you're on the street. So everybody's got their own.
Yeah, that's good. Listen, it's an old school setup as far as it's an awesome environment especially when there's a big game there. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, there's any of your big games. There is literally no seat empty, and it's funny because my kid goes to St. Leo's, right?
Yeah.
So they're all if I were to ask him where is he going to high school, he already knows where he's going to high school. They cultured him at St. Leo's already. Yeah, so, it's pretty funny. But like like when we go to a game, I'll take him to like one or two a year, and like they're just like the environment is there's so many people there, I said you just gotta have to make sure you keep your back strong where you're sitting in the stands. Keep your back nice and firm, unless you're gonna lean on the people in the back, lean on their knees. But as far as the environment, it's packed. Like, and I think it's great in the sense that the visitor side, right? And Bergen Catholic likes to set up their whole tent and everything. Right. I thought it was hilarious. They have to set their tent. Their parents were all squeezed over there, you know. Yeah, and they had to walk over to get food to the other side where there's no room at all.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's definitely a home field advantage as far as that. But yeah, I mean, we have, and the other side is like for games, like we have alumni that come back 30, 40, 50 years to the games, I mean,
that's what I was going to say. I said, look, there's a lot more people in the stands who don't have kids on the field that are just there because go RBC, or, hey, I heard about this kid who's pretty damn good and he's got this offer and I'm going to come. I want to go see him. Right. Like,
we have a good alumni following. A lot of them, I invite them out to summer practices and things like that. So they come out, which is cool. I've had guys come over the years to tell stories, and the kids relate to it, and it just makes for a good atmosphere.
Well, there's no doubt about it. What are you hoping the program kind of goes to? Like, are you ever thinking? I'm throwing this out there. I'm not saying you are thinking. Are you ever thinking the goal is to be not obviously number one in the state? I'm sure that's one of your goals. But are you ever thinking, well, I'd like to have a national ranking? Is that like, how do you do you think about those things, or do you think, hey, I'm just these are our steps. And if we get to the state championship, we win each one of our games, we have a chance to be the top team in the state. How do you kind of approach that part?
I think it's from more like a broad view. It's more of, all right, obviously we always want, our goals are always want to be number one in the shore. We want to win a state championship. I think that obviously I feel like we're getting closer and closer to the number one ranking, but we have some work to do. But as far as, as far as like national rankings, I'll be honest with you. I've seen some that we were ranked in whatever the top 100, 150, whatever the heck it was.
Oh yeah, you're up there. Don't worry.
But it's just, there's just so many of those that I just, I don't know, between what Max Preps and NHFS and all these other ones, it's just one step at a time. And ultimately the biggest one is to push the envelope to be one in the state. And again, it's never going to be easy, but I think it's at this point, it's what you sign up for when you come to Red Man Catholic.
That's it.
Do you think, do you get, I'm just curious because I don't know, do you get kids from all over the state or mostly Shore Conference, maybe some Middlesex? What is the like majority of your makeup?
No, our line is probably like Old Bridge down to maybe a Brick, maybe a kid or two from Toms River, maybe like Manalapan. That's it. We don't. Okay. That's our biggest, sell, if you will, is that our kids are all homegrown in the Monmouth County area. I don't have any, unlike in the north where there's
kids from down here.
Yeah, they have some of ours. We don't have any of theirs.
Yes, so, they do.
And again, I'd rather, to be honest with you, I'd rather it be that way.
Correct.
Right. Well, it does help you to continue to build relationships.
Exactly.
I think that's a big thing. Some of them manage it. It's interesting to see what's going on in North Jersey with the parochials, how there were established powers, and then obviously Bergen Catholic is right now number one, but how they're all trying to figure out how do they manage all that, right? Because they do have players coming from a lot of different directions, and then it works for some places, work for a long time, and then it's not working, right? It's interesting how that happens, but you have a nice home base and of players that come from and listen, everybody knows RBC. I mean that's a brand. RBC is like when people talk about brands of a school, like to me, like when you're down, the first thing I knew when I moved down here was RBC, right? So that's a brand that everybody knows.
Think about that first job we took. What was everybody preaching to us?
Oh yeah,
that building. It was
right.
Well, yeah, that absolutely, and that was.
And then you have two outliers, and we're just like, oh, okay. Like, we know who they are.
Like it didn't last long, Derek. So you don't have to remind me. But
gotta keep it fresh.
Yeah, no, but that was like we It definitely was. It was. We had
to adjust to it.
It was really interesting. It was. I think it was really interesting how there was a school that really had a brand, right? And then, obviously, there are public schools that rotates maybe who's the best. There are certain schools like Mid South is obviously always under Antonucci's always been very good. Like
you had Wall a couple years ago, right? Wasn't Wall years ago? Like
but RBC. Yeah. I mean, if I were to say the two programs, like when being from up in North Jersey and coming down here, there were two programs that I knew for sure. I knew RBC and I knew Mid-South because they had been there, and obviously Antonucci had been there for a long time until obviously stepping down now. But those were the two programs that I knew. And it's funny when we moved down here, obviously we live in Lincroft, they're like, you moved to literally like your kid could go to like either one of the two best programs in the Shore. I said, we just like the area, so that was why we moved here. But it worked out that way. That obviously you guys are 5 minutes down the road, and South is 5 minutes down the road. But so it worked out that way. But it really is. It is a great brand. and like everybody knows your logo. You know, you guys got to get that on the field at some point, even if it's just temporary. You got to hire like a I don't know. You know how they have those temporary paint guys, right? That like it washes off.
We have it on the Pratt.
That's what I was just gonna say. I know. I'm sure you branded the new practice field like
practice
that's
field
something that that's
has
great.
that on. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. That's new. That's actually a really, really nice field.
Yeah.
You know, for years it was just a grass field. They built that for you.
Yeah.
Talk about how that's been a good thing for you.
Well, it's good because it's flat and there's no holes that the kids can fall into. So that's a bonus. And yeah, and it's we never really had a home base like that. So as far as turf, so to have that where you know in the summer where in the past, like our freshmen, it would even be at different spots than we were, and that was a big part to have them on the field with us. So we kind of run it like a college practice where they're on one side of the field, we're on the other, and and again we have a home base where in the summer and during the season that's where we are. Where it stretched you a little bit, especially during the COVID days where you kind of had to figure out some how are you going to manage now. All our equipment, all our pads, all that stuff, like the kids know, okay, that's where we're practicing.
Right. And that was your first year, right? 2020 was COVID year, your first year as the head coach?
Yeah, I think I was hired beginning of February, and then March they said we'll see the kids in 2 weeks.
Yeah, then it was like, okay, Zoom calls.
Yeah, and then everybody didn't see each other till July or whatever it was.
Yeah. Man, we were in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't miss that. So
no, I don't think anybody does.
That's a hell of a way to start. You know what I mean? That's a hell of a way to start over as a head coach.
Yeah. No, it was a crazy experience, but I was glad. At least I was glad for the kids, the seniors that year, to get a couple games in. I forget what we play 6 or something. So
right.
We played one without practicing. I don't forget.
Yes, we did. We played hack and sack without practice.
We had a 15-minute walkthrough and get on the field and let's go.
Well, that's what I knew. Me and Derek talked about. That's what we knew. That was probably about it for us, because not only we couldn't practice, the kids were going to a park and practice. Like we would give them. They were like, okay, we're gonna go work out, and I would just give them like a plan.
Here's your script.
And they called me up and they said, they can't go to a park and work out on their own. I'm like, I'm not telling them that. You can tell them that. Their parents have said that's okay for them. Like that's what they want. That has this is unrelated to school, unfortunately. But luckily they did that because we played.
Looking back, I mean, look,
crazy
year for everybody.
As a parent, I get it. If that was my kid's senior year or something, I would try my best to try to make it work. And as a kid, think about it, as a 17-year-old that year, like these kids were being told they weren't going to have a season. Like,
right. Could you imagine?
Yeah. And that just goes for all kids, so it just, we were fortunate what we got, so.
Right. It officially turned me into a parochial school guy, because that's when we decided that was my son's first year. That's when we decided we were putting him in St. Leo's for sure.
Right, because they were going back in person.
They were going to school, and we were like, and then we were doing it, and they were doing everything they could to when they could go to school, and if they weren't in school, like it was just phenomenal what they did. And I was like, well, this is our road now. This is the road we want to be on, because we just loved it. Not that obviously some public schools were trying hard, but St. Leo's took it to, it was just amazing. So, but yeah, I think that was an interesting, you learned a lot. Hey, we wouldn't have these, we wouldn't be doing, everybody did podcasts in person before that. So, going and kind of what, you do as far as a development aspect, like, so, you talked about the workouts you guys have in the spring. from a weightlifting, strength and conditioning type of stuff, what do you have as a program that from the time a kid comes in there to the time he leaves, like what do you kind of have in place from that standpoint?
Well, as far as, I think with, one, I'm a big believer in always having a freshman program as far as, we have a good number of kids, and it starts with developing them on and off the field as far as, just even from the classroom settings, right? Just, there's some guys that need to, we have some guys right now that need to grow up. So, but as far as, weight room wise, we ease them into it. I feel like, in the summer for the weight room, we'll do like almost like a 101 session of, because you'll get kids that, they've never touched a weight, they're terrified of getting on.
No idea what a clean is.
No idea what's going on. But then you kind of, I feel like the days of, the 5 days a week in the weight room with your team, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like they become tougher and tougher. And again, I don't knock it because, everybody has their own trainer or
Right.
Yeah.
We do it more for
Team.
as much as it's important as far as getting, bigger, faster, stronger it's also more for me when it gets to the point of the varsity level, it's more for team building.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
And being able to trust the guys that you're around. And I think, I think that that's worked. And I think that's something that we've been tough to kind of adapt to. When I first got it, I was like, wait a minute, we're instead of going 4 days a week, we're only going to go 3. Wait, now we're going to go 2 this month. But it's, like our thing is, I tell the kids, like, we're going to test you throughout the year to make sure you're the bar's not
doing what you're supposed to be doing.
So I think that's more of it. And we're making a big push with, speed this year more than ever. I think we'll probably have a large assortment of our skill kids. They don't know it yet, going out for track this year.
That's huge.
Just to kind of connect that part and just ultimately we're ready for June, so but I think it starts with when they get here, as far as freshmen, and just kind of, just obviously football and, the strength and conditioning, how about just being a good person at school, so, and, we've had kids that, hey, maybe you have to grow up. And, I've had numerous success stories over the years where kids by the end are captains of our teams or leaders of our team, even on the team that just won, like kids that were maybe immature when they got here, but bought in the right way. There's so many success stories as far as that. And I'm not just talking about, the top level kids. And that's the thing that, I try to push is that, there's success stories, not just at the highest level here.
Everybody has a chance to contribute.
That's amazing. Exactly. Everybody has their role.
That's it.
Coach, thanks so much for coming on. This has been great. We'd love to have you on anytime you ever want to talk football, anything you ever want to share. We'd love to have you on.
Absolutely.
Much success, continued success for you. We love what you're doing. We, obviously we've gotten to know you a little bit over these last
I appreciate it.
And it's phenomenal what you're doing.
Appreciate the time, Coach. Like I said, I think it's great. Continue to, I love that you're scheduling out of state and kind of doing that a little bit. And then I love that you're bringing in the big boys to play them because, listen, I'm the biggest advocate and proponent of, look, if you don't play good teams, you ain't going to be able to battle when it matters the most, right? So, I mean, DePaul's going out there battling. So,
check back with me in December, see if I'm in one piece. But
that's it, buddy. Hey, listen, Coach, it's not like you can lose hair or anything. You're good to go with that. You know what
I got that covered, which is good.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. Coach, have a great day.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend. I'll talk
All right,
to
you too.
Yeah, later.
Thanks, Coach.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
That was great.
I love it. Talking about the development and that type of thing, you know what I mean? Raising the bar, like we're not satisfied with what we got going. I mean, even just like working with what you have, he's talking about like, I didn't even have a practice field with holes all over the place. And like we talked about, like, that's what's crazy about this. You know what I mean? Like, is you're talking about a prominent program like RBC where everybody knows who they are. You know, even nationally, people know RBC.
Yep.
And then you go and you're like, well, you play here, or this is what you're practicing on, or you know what I mean? Like, this is whatever.
Well, that's why I say like the brand is
it's dude,
so
it's
strong.
stamped, dude. Like,
it's a stamp. Their logo's a stamp. Yeah, obviously, Coach Lange really is like an excellent person to represent it. Like, not just building the football program, but like the buy-in for what the school has to offer and all that kind of stuff.
Buys into the whole picture, right? It's not just football. And listen, I love when guys talk about like being a good damn person, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, we all want guys to go to the NFL. We all want guys to play at the highest level. But at the end of the day, these guys are going to be fathers, right? They're going to be, you know, humans. You know what I'm saying? Like, say please and thank you, dude. Open a door, leave a tip, right? Like, where can we get those good people, right? Like, and that's kind of what this is all about. You know, I mean, listen, you got a guy that played for him how many years ago in the comments already saying, God, this was one of the best offenses played under this guy. Like, that was people, what we do matters, you know?
Yep. No, it's very important. It was really great. I'm glad we were able to dive into a little bit of the weeds, at least, which is good. I know, you know, really understand, you know, under the hood a little bit about like what RBC is, what it represents, and
what they think, well, like their viewpoint. I mean, look, talks about a staff being intact for how long? I mean, come on, man.
That's like, there's very low.
Every time you see, you know, like
turnover, but it's like one guy a year type of thing,
right? And it's like, really, what is that a core guy? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's all about,
or maybe a guy goes to a bigger job. You know,
correct, maybe right? Like, and he's the guy that's like, man, that's awesome. Congratulations. You know what I mean? It's not one of those like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I just think that's so pivotal, right? Because if you don't have those relationships and the trust between your staff and all that kind of stuff, the kids see right through it, dude. You know what I mean? You can't bullshit them. Like they 100%. All right, well, that guy knows what he's talking about, but that guy don't know what he's talking about. Well, coach doesn't let him do that, so he obviously doesn't trust him with that. I'm not going to listen to that. You know what I mean? And I also think another point was, I think it's great. Like, look, the days of 5 days in the weight room with our whole team and go, those days are gone. All these guys have their own personal guys working out. You know what I mean? So I can do 3 days a week team building wise and know that my guys are still getting those other days, you know, doing what they're supposed to be doing. But you can't do that unless you have trust within your roster and you've created a culture to trust those guys to go and do that. You know what I mean? And he's done that. It's sustainable. Look at the product he's put out.
There's no doubt about it. No, that was excellent. We covered a lot. I never realized.
Don't screw it up.
Yeah. I never realized he had such a calm demeanor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I talked to him on the phone and stuff in person.
It's like, oh, and it's
very calm demeanor. You know, me and you were like maniacs, so
chomping at the bit, like, get me out of the cage. Which is not like, and I'll tell you one thing, like, I've calmed down so much when it's come to that, because it's like, you know, I'm not about to have a massive heart attack at 37, like, because that's where it would go if I was still, you know, the transition from player to coach is very difficult. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's the biggest and hardest part is, you know, you always want to be your program to be, you know, at this level all the time. But when you're playing, and then as a coach, like, you can't do that because your players are now looking at you. And if you're losing your mind, you know what I mean? Like, now where's their confidence? You know, like, oh, coach is going crazy. Like, now I'm going. No, it's like, all right, bro, everything's going to be good. And I also love the point he made about, like, better offensively because he coached defense, right?
Yeah. We didn't go enough into that, but that's a big deal. I mean,
I said that to you for how many years, right? Like,
that's always what I thought helped me.
Defense, so it helps you offensively. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I can do this, and they can't. Now, as an offensive guy, it's like, oh, well, if they like, I can do this because I know I can hurt them. That all comes from.
That's how remember Paul Johnson, the triple spread option. How Paul Johnson came up with it because he was a defensive coordinator.
And he's like, man, when offenses do this really sucks. Like, I can't really, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
same type of gig. And I think that's like a note that, you know, guys want to come up and be like, oh, I played receiver, so I'm going to be the receivers coach. Like, dude,
Yeah,
go
that's what they
figure out
know.
some other stuff. Make yourself more marketable by being able to coach everything.
Yeah, no, that's right. The line is the most fun, guys.
Oh, dude, they're the best. Line coaches are just a different.
That was my heaviest. I think as big as I am now, I was actually. It's just funny because I didn't realize until the end of the season that I took off the weight because I was young still. But when we won the state championship at Riverdale, I was an O-line, D-line coach, and
Shit.
we would go to breakfast if you got us the team.
Yeah, pancakes, brother.
Pancakes. So we would go to breakfast, and man, we were at breakfast every week. We were doing so good because we were undefeated. So we were at breakfast
like, all right,
every week.
I mean, listen, it's part of it because, you know, you talk to every coach and it's like, look, I usually gain 10, 15 during the season just because it's a rat race, dude.
I gained 30 that year.
Wild. Hey, but you
I was 240. I was 240 when I started the year. I was 270 at the end of the year. Riverdale was bad for my health.
I'll take a bad season of health. I can figure it out if I get a friggin' ring.
And I used to live at the what did they have? They used to have the dinners you'd have. So we had three
like your pasta dinners on a Friday night or whatever.
We had three things that were great. First of all, we had the dinners. Okay. I'd never seen dinners like at Riverdale. Any place I've ever been, all the years I've been. I don't know what other
Bergen County action, buddy.
No, and Old Japan was good. And some of the other places I was good, like Powell Park was pretty good with it. The parents did a good job, but this was incredible. It was like a spread, and then they had the dessert. Though we always
that's what kills you, bro.
Dessert. They would have 50 desserts. I'm not kidding. 50 crumb cake.
Yeah,
I had like 4 crumb cakes. I used to tell them they should sell that crumb cake because it was so
as a maid, you're like, I don't know who made. Like, Mom, you did that. Come here. Your kid's on kickoff now. Thank you.
And then on Monday, the parents gave us because this is old. People don't do this now because you have huddle as much. But we used to, believe it or not we had a huddle, but we used to break down film by hand.
Of course.
And they used to give us money to go. The parents gave us money to go to the. There was like this. Italian market right by, and we would get these chicken arms. I mean, they were like this big, huge, and we would have like 10 sandwiches there, 20, 15 sandwiches there, and I mean, I ate at least 2 or 3 every time. I literally at the end of the season, I was like, I didn't even realize it until the picture came out. You know, you have the pictures. I'm like, oh God. I was like, oh God.
That's how I feel every day of my life.
That's what just happened to me. So I took it off in the off season, but then eventually as I got older, it slowly came back. But
that's what I can't even. It's every day of my life.
I think girlfriends back then. I think whoever my girlfriend
don't go there.
Might have dumped me for that.
Well, then she was making the right damn choice, right? Maybe somebody needed to smash.
Like, he was handsome, and now he's not.
She was like, damn. You know what I mean? It's like the same time. It's like the same whenever I see somebody I haven't seen in a while. It's like,
damn. No longer.
Like, you ain't wearing number 2 anymore, bro. Now you're wearing 62.
62.
I was like, yeah, and sitting on the bench, like, we're good. Damn. But listen, I thought that was awesome. He was like, I've talked to him a couple of times. When you can sustain winning at that level, right? Even if it is, people always knock it for what it is. Oh, he's down here. He's whatever. I don't care, dude. He's producing high-level players. He's winning games. Kids are doing the right thing. And it's not even so much the big-name guys that are getting recruited. It's the other guys that are, like you said, going D3 or doing this or doing that. I mean, look, we had one of them, and that dude, I mean, he's a player, never shuts up. But I mean, I love him, and he's going to Bucknell, right? And he wasn't even the best player on that team. You know what I'm saying? But I just think that that's so big, right? Keeping everybody together, all their coaching, you know what I mean? The same guys, same faces, just working together for a common goal that's, sustainable. It's not just a one-year wonder. We're good, and then we're not. And then it's not rebuild, it's reload.
There's no doubt. And reload and be better than before.
Correct. And listen, you hear him talk right now. Like, yeah, we lost a lot, but you know what? These guys got to grow up, and it's now their season. Like, this is your year, dude. You know, and that's hard unless you have the culture that he's built. I mean, you're gonna have a 3-year starter at quarterback coming in, dude. You can't be that bad, you know.
Yep. There's no doubt. No, that kid's a stud. Absolute stud. He zips that ball.
100%. He's an animal.
All right, let's get out of here. That was a great podcast until next
Till
time.
next time.
And we'll go from there. Till next time. Great podcast.